Good morning, grade 3. How are you doing today? Today is the 8th of February 2022, and we are going to learn about contractions with not and apostrophes. For this, I need your practice book page 193 to 196. So let's begin. First of all, what are our objectives for today? We are going to learn what are negative contractions. We are going to learn how to use apostrophes when you show possession, and then we are going to learn how to punctuate sentences, and we will do the exercises. So what are contractions with not? What is a contraction? A contraction is a shortened form of two words. It is a short way to put two words together. Let us look at some contractions. Does not. Now these are two words and we can put these together to make a contraction. Let us see how to do it. So you have does and not. We cancel the O in not, not, and the O is replaced with an apostrophe. So the O will be replaced with an apostrophe. So here you can see does, doesn't, doesn't. So we don't spell the O. Doesn't. We just say doesn't. We don't say does not. We say doesn't. And O is replaced with an apostrophe. Are not. These words can be put together to make a contraction. Let us see how to do this. Are not. We cancel the O in not, and instead of that we replace it with an apostrophe. Aren't. When the words come together, the O is replaced with an apostrophe. Now we have these two words, has not, so we replace the O with an apostrophe to make a contraction. So it becomes hasn't. Hasn't. Let us look at one more. Now here what do? He cannot go. So what do? We cancel N and O and we put an apostrophe after N and we say he can't go. So you see how we shortened the word, and instead of cannot we just made it can't. He can't go. So we cancelled the N and the O, and then we added an apostrophe in the middle, and they can go. Now let us look at this example. They are not home. Okay, which is the correct sentence? They aren't home. They aren't, the second one B, they aren't home, or they at home. Which one? So what we will do is, when we join are and not, what do? We cancel the O. We cancel the O, and instead of the O we put an apostrophe. So B is correct. Okay, she isn't happy. She is not happy. Now we join is and not together and we cancel the O and we write she isn't happy. So C is correct. You can see here she, ISN, and instead of the O we put an apostrophe. So she isn't happy. This is the correct way to write it. Now will not will become won't. Will not will become won't. Okay, so what do? Instead of we take out the I and then we put the we take out the ILL and we put the O. We put the O and then after the N we have an apostrophe, so it becomes won't. Will not becomes won't. So don't get confused. It's not willn't, but it's won't. He will not go. So C is correct. He won't go. A and B is wrong. Now first find the two words in the sentence that can be used to make a contraction. Then choose the correct contraction that can be made. Should not will become, which is the correct way to write shouldn't? Yes, you're right. It is the last one, the third one, this one. Let me circle it. This one is the correct answer. Shouldn't. So what did we do? Instead of writing not, we just took out the O from here and we put the apostrophe instead. Let us see the next one. Cannot. Which is the correct way to write cannot or can't? The short form for can, not. So it will be the second one. Can't. So what do we do here? We took the N. There is double N here. So we took one N and one the O, and instead of that we put an apostrophe and it became can't. The next one is do not. So what did we do here? Instead of don't, we just made it don't. Like we took out the O that is in not. Okay, so we wrote the number 3 is correct. Don't. This is the correct way to write don't. Will not. I already told you about this. So the correct way to write will not is want. Let us see the next example. Would not. So the correct way to write wouldn't is the first one. Wouldn't. Let us see the next one. Couldn't. What is the correct way to write the contraction couldn't? I think it is the second one. Couldn't. This is the correct way because we took out the O, and we instead of that we put an apostrophe. Couldn't. Look at this example. Cannot take people with him on his motorcycle. So we have to make a contraction for cannot. So how will we write? Cannot, can't, or cannot? Which one? The first one is the right answer. Can't. So it is can't. Can't take people with him on his motorcycle. We are not going to the beach next summer. So what do? We cancel the O over here. We cancel this O, and instead of that we put an apostrophe. So it becomes aren't. So the second one is correct. Aren't. Some people do not take good care of the earth. So how do we write the contraction do not? So it becomes don't. So how do we write it? What do? We cancel the O here, and instead of that we put an apostrophe. So it becomes like this. This one. The first one is the correct way to write don't. We were not able to take a good picture. So what do? Instead of writing were not, we will join both these words and put an apostrophe instead of O. So which is the correct way to write it? Instead of the O you can see an apostrophe. So this is the correct way to write it. Weren't. Let us go to the next word. Choose the correct contraction are not. For are not, how do we write? Do we say were, didn't, your, or aren't? Which is the correct way? Yes, this is the one. Aren't. Because instead of the O, we just put an apostrophe. And we join both the words together, so it becomes aren't. Choose the correct contraction do not. So instead of do not, what do we write? Do we write didn't, am, it's, or don't? Yes, you're right. This is don't, because instead of the O, we put an apostrophe and we write don't. Let us go to the next example. Choose the correct contraction for did not. So is it aren't, were, and didn't and it's? Which one? I think it is didn't, because instead of the O we just put an apostrophe, so it becomes didn't. Choose the correct contraction for is not. So is not becomes isn't. This is the correct way to write isn't. It is not right. This number C is correct. It isn't right, because you can see that instead of the O we put an apostrophe. Okay, so it isn't right. They will not go. Instead of writing they will not go, we can just write they won't go. So which is the correct way to write this? It is they won't go. This number C. The letter C. The letter C, and this is the correct way to write it. They won't go. They are not home. So which is the correct way to write aren't? The second one. Exercise, sorry, the option B. The option B. Because instead of the O we put an apostrophe. She is not happy. She isn't happy. So C, letter C is correct. She isn't happy. He will not go. He won't go. So C is correct. Hope you had fun doing the contractions, and now let us learn a little bit about the possessive nouns, because we are going to do possessive nouns also here on the second page, sorry, on page 195. We have we will learn about possessive, how to show possession. Okay, let us see that. So what are possessive nouns? Nouns that show possession, like for example they are used to show ownership. Dad's car is for sale. Whose car? Dad's car. So what do we do? After dad, D-A-D, we put an apostrophe and then an S. Whose car? Dad's car. Alright? So this is how we show possession. Let us see another example. The doctor's coat. You can see here, whose coat is it? The doctor's coat. So what did we do? We put an apostrophe. But this is not a contraction. When you show possession, it's not a contraction. So don't get confused between a contraction and when we use a possession, when we show possession, that it belongs to someone. Possession means it belongs to someone. So the doctor's coat. Whose coat? The doctor's coat. So before the S we put an apostrophe. The kite string. Whose string? The kite string. So you can see the apostrophe before the S. So it shows possession, that the string belongs to the kite. Let's see another example. The children's costumes. Whose costumes? The children costumes. The children's costumes. So after the, let us go here. Okay, here you can see the practice book.